appreciate everybody coming out. I hope you enjoyed the film. We're just going to break this down for a Q&A, so whatever questions you've got on writer, director, Phil, and we've got a lead actor, and supporting actor, and so we got the little house here. So, what we got?
Question for you, Phil. What inspired this particular filmmaking endeavor?
Yeah, so there's something like 10,000 Nazis historically that fled Germany after the fall of the Third Reich, and it's a relatively underdone story area. And I can't think of anything more American than an '80s pastiche of Nazi ass kicking. So I think we took that as fertile ground, and it's a sort of a based historical reality upon which we could sort of weave this story that's kind of combining this Indiana Jones-esque adventure and this almost Tarantino-esque irreverence for history, and a lot of just fun storytelling. Taking the liberties, but also basing that in something that actually happened. So yeah, it was just a fun story to tell, and it hadn't really quite been done before. Anybody else?
Who did the music? It was wonderful.
That was Christoph Unterberger. He's a gentleman out of Austria. We actually put a lot of work, a lot of time and effort into sourcing a good composer, and he kind of beat a bunch of folks out of the mix, and actually flew over to Austria to kind of set the final looks with them and go through hitting all the beats and points. So it was really it was actually my first time really getting that involved in the composition side. A lot of fun, and it's one of the most marvelous parts of the movie, to be honest.
This is a question for the actors. What kind of research did you have to do to really get the characters down that you were playing?
Well, it started out with working with writer-director Phil, going off of his knowledge. Read a lot of nonfiction, read a lot of first-hand accounts, and because of my age as a school kid, I did have the opportunity to talk to a lot of World War II vets before sadly, most of them have passed away now. So it was a lot of just trying to take the historical context and personalize it. So just a lot of reading and a lot of calling up old memories of hearing the people who actually went through it talk about it. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's something that actors love to answer so much. I downloaded German Duolingo, obviously. And I actually have some personal family history, some first-hand accounts. My oma and opa are Dutch. They lived in Amsterdam during the occupation. And so my mom was smart enough to write down all of her father's notes from that time. And I read those voraciously because he was probably the age that I think Lena would have been at the time. So that was really helpful and cool. And yeah, I don't know. That's and then mostly just staring, frowning.
Very method with that all during
Yeah.
production. To play a crazy Nazi. I think was, we've seen a lot of Nazi depictions. I want to do something a little different and to have a little methamphetamine insanity. So I tried a lot of meth. Because there's different kinds of meth. I don't know if there's a lot of meth connoisseurs. I'm looking at you, ma'am. I know we've seen each other at that truck stop. Yeah, you know which one.
That's why I was frowning.
I'm kidding, I've never done meth. My wife's here. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and just that kind of, getting into just kind of work with these crazy cats. What they did with such a scrappy crew and just a lot of people with just wonderful intentions. It's great fun.
Thank you.
My question is for Jackson. So, you've had a great career. What was your reaction when you read the script for the first time? Like, how did you feel about it? And was it something that you were excited about? Or I just want to know your initial response when you first found out about the project.
Were you insulted?
Yes.
I was like, a Nazi? That's who they want me to be? And a real shit Nazi too? Not even one of the good ones. I was actually on vacation and with my family in Mexico. My wife's like, what are you doing? Go play with the kids in the pool. And I'm like, I'm reading about Nazis. My wife's Jewish, so like she was like, all right, now put the phone down and go play with the kids. But seriously, I really was interested in it. You got Michael Ironside, getting a chance to work with a legend like that. I always try to make sure that when I look at my career, I try to do something I haven't done, and if I can work with someone who's going to teach me something, that's the most important thing. Those two things to me. And that film had it, and that offer had it right off the top. So that was. And then I actually got to set, and these guys know what they're doing, and that's amazing. And not only do they know what they're doing, but they're nice about it too, which, that's the cream on, the cherry on the top, cream, or whatever. This is my first beer.
It's the meth.
So, I was very impressed with all of the German in the film. All of the language that was spoken the accents were on point. Did you guys have backgrounds in German before this at all? You mentioned Duolingo, but if that was all it was, that was very impressive.
Well, I mean, obviously the shooting was pushed back by like a year, so I had a long time. And actually my friend Haley, who's here, she was getting her master's at the time in tourism, so she set me up with a meeting with an actual German guy who was very excited. He'd never done like anything like this before, and he's actually from the region of Germany that Lena's from. So I talked to him, I recorded the whole conversation, and I just like listened to it over and over, and I was like, are there any like swear words, or like or sayings from that region, like what would your grandma say, like something like that. I was really interested, and I guess I was less focused on pronunciation more than like speed. I think that's the key to making it look like you know what you're saying. Yeah.
I worked with a dialect coach for
Right.
a bunch, and that's it. Yeah, he just would yell at me in German. I cry. I'm sorry, that was my therapy. Yeah, same thing, I guess. No, it's just the dialect coach. It's something. It's nice, and then kind of once you get on the wardrobe, everything changes to me. I don't know. It's like Laurence Olivier once said. It's like it starts with the boots. And really, it's about Alexander technique, the way you stand, the way you feel, the way you move. But for me, there's something about when you see yourself being, dressed, or when you dress yourself, when you see yourself with the makeup and in the outfit, and you've been working on the accent, and then it all kind of comes together, and whatever you feel in the moment, you just kind of roll with. Is what I tried to do, at least.
And that was, I'll mention there, this is one of the hallmarks of this film, and really one of the challenging things about it is, these fine folks, they had a bunch of German, and then and Al Pagano had a bunch of German as Albert, and the really scary part was we had a scene there with the skull scene, if everybody remembers that. You had Arnold Vosloo, James Urbaniak, who played Himmler, Arnold Vosloo as Colonel Bach, and then Bruce Davison doing an entire scene in German. And these weren't just a line with something pitched back where if you drop the line, you get it read and go back. Everyone is speaking German around this table in a circle, and not one of those actors spoke German ever in their lives prior to that. And so they had to come in, the same as Jackson and Corinne and Elle, and learn the entire monologue. And if you drop a single word, you can't just fall back on a different word that because you don't speak the language. And so really just a testament to them, in that scene, being able to clock the entire thing flawlessly, and to Jackson and Corinne and Elle, that is a tremendous challenge to do a movie in German. I mean, that is something else. So hats off to them for sure.
Yeah, I'm just curious, it's such a heavy topic. Did you have to find yourself staying in character beyond when you were filming? Or were you able to have some fun with each other and fellow actors?
It did take a little bit of because of the intense self-loathing and PTSD that Will Spaulding dealt with. Even on the most dialed in of days, in order to be truthful with it, it did take a few minutes before you film. You got to step aside and make sure you're checking the boxes, because you don't want to do an injustice to or something untruthful about how heavy that is. So yeah, there was a method acting, but there's a little bit of, let me be respectful about how heavy this is. Just dial it in, try to do it right.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty much the same way. I think I rely a lot on my prior work, and then just sort of like allow how, like what you were describing, allow how I feel in the moment during the scene to kind of happen. And yeah, I typically don't like to carry it with me after you yell cut. I'm just like, you know, I like to be a person around other people. But yeah, I mean, I think you just do a lot of prior work, and then you allow yourself to forget it all, let it all be in the body like you were talking about, and then yeah, just be sort of with the other person in the scene is really what you're doing.
100%. I do not enjoy living in the character outside of action and cut. I think it's kind of there's a method to the madness of method acting. I think it works incredibly well in theater. I think on film sets, you can say you're doing it, but you're really not doing it. There's no such thing as method in filmmaking. They don't work together unless you're Daniel Day-Lewis and you can afford to have someone running around after you and, you know, building you a log cabin on your set, and you just ignore the fact that everyone around you has these magical little devices in their hands that light up, and like you get food brought to you on a car, even though there's no cars when you're, you know, sort of. I've worked with method actors; they're assholes.
Drop names, don't be shy.
But I respect the craft. I just not them. I'm joking, people. I'm joking. I don't respect the craft.
All right, what else we got?
What was the budget and how much did you go over?
Don't answer that. As your lawyer, I say you don't answer that question. She's got a camera. She's recording. Saban, are you here? We don't.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to answer that question. It was a lot. It was a lot. What was the second part? What was the budget and what else?
How much did you go over?
Oh, I can't answer that either.
You
I'm
did
sorry.
not.
I don't get
He does
that.
such a wonderful. Any investors here tonight? He never goes over.
The majority of the budget was spent on sweat dabbing all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a rumor about two getting ready. What's the rumor about that?
About the next film?
The next one.
Is a follow-up to Condors Nest or just the next film?
The next film.
Next film's set out west during the 1960s. It's a couple of pair of U.S. Marshals chasing down a fugitive. It's a sort of a neo-western, if you will. It'll be fun. It's in the works.
Was that like in the early 50s or the late 40s?
Condors Nest?
Yeah.
Condors Nest, the question was, is it in late 40s, early 50s? So it opens up in 1944, and then we have that jump 10 years later to 1954. So most of the movie is 1950 South America.
How many countries did you film in?
It was two. We shot here in the U.S., which remarkably was able to double, really thanks to a tremendous art department for a bunch of different South American locales. We would have these decked out hotel bars that were supposed to be hotel bars in Paraguay, but they were Charlotte, North Carolina, and eastern France was actually Enfield, North Carolina. Really just a tiny locale in the eastern part of the state. But what we did, there's certain things you can't fake, right? No matter what sleight of hand you pull, and so we had to have some big, broad establishing shots and some of your wide sort of landscape exteriors that had to indelibly be South America. So we took a foray down to Peru, which was really exciting, and we shot various locations in Peru for South America. The Peruvian Amazon doubled for Paraguay. The deserts of Paracas doubled for coastal Chile on a couple of shots. And we actually, one remarkable little facet of this is I've been to Machu Picchu multiple times. I don't know how many people recognize the ancient Incan fortress there in the film. And if you've ever been, if you've ever seen pictures, you know that you cannot get a shot in Machu Picchu, even with a camera that doesn't have 90 shoulders in it or 3,000 people down. But we managed to show up, I think, what was it, like 2 weeks after Peru reopened for tourism. And so we went up there and there was nobody at Machu Picchu. And so we were able to get, I think everyone's going to think it's stock footage because it's this pristine shot of Machu Picchu, and anyone who've ever seen it knows that's not going to happen. So it was, really fortuitous. It really gave us a kind of a bump in production value, and I hope, sort of set this as indelibly in South America, in those big, the big shots where it needs to be. So, U.S. and then Peru.
What was your most difficult scene to shoot and why?
Yeah, oh man, there was a lot of tough ones logistically, and I'll let these guys jump in a second. I'm sure they all have individual thoughts. I think we shot in the opening scene with the B-17 that was going down. We had to film inside a live plane flying, and had to do it with minimal crew. FAA has certain regulations about how many people you can have up in a plane, but we needed a plane in flight to have, you know, the shaking and the movement and the, you know, the cables of the ailerons moving through the plane. You know, a lot of, you know, sort of things you can't get by shooting it in the studio. So we insisted on flying that up, and it was a tremendous challenge. Couldn't roll sound. Had this ridiculous sort of marker board with, you know, with directions, so you wouldn't have to scream in anybody's ear, and it was just absolute insanity. That was difficult, and then I think logistically the opening scene with the plane was difficult. It was shooting in 110-degree heat index out in eastern North Carolina in July of 2021. That was really difficult, but I don't know. I mean, you know, anything's difficult to do it right, but you know, there's a lot of joy that sort of subverts that, and I honestly have so many good memories of it all. It's hard to think of the bad stuff, but we'll let them talk about the bad stuff.
It's all wonderful memories, but I got a second fill here. It was the shoot in Texas and the B-17 that was insane. Taking direction with a whiteboard where we had worked out the little symbols in between so that we don't have to stop between action and cut. And we're out there also in a real B-17, so there's wind blowing, there's crazy noise, and you're still in character. It both very, very much helped the performance and was just absolutely fucking insane at the same time.
I still have one. Thank you. Honestly, it wasn't so much like the scene or the content itself, but just the heat of it all. I'm wearing a leather jacket in you know, summer in North Carolina. I don't know. Any scene where my hair is frizzy, that's real. Yeah, I mean, honestly, every scene with Jackson, what a diva, you guys. Nightmare. No, it was like, it was all fun. I mean, it was muddy, it was hot as hell, it was 3 a.m, driving back to the motel. I don't know, it was like, it was all great. It was like a summer camp, but you get paid at the end. Including the bugs. Gotta kill a lot of bugs.
It was great for me. I don't know about you guys, but it was great for me. I enjoyed every minute of it. I seriously don't have any complaints. You know, that's it. It was great. These guys know what they're doing.
Awesome. We got time for a couple more.
I was just wondering if all of you guys were out in LA last night, and if you were, flew in today's Atlanta, have you had any time to do anything in Atlanta, or you just all went to sleep before coming here?
From the Atlanta Tourism Board, we had.
We did see the premiere in LA last night, and then we did fly to Atlanta with a healthy layover in the Denver airport. But luckily, before the premiere tonight, we did get to stop at Arby's. And I want everyone here to know, they have the meats.
And that check's coming through.
So I'm actually a year and a half local now. So like I'm here for a year and a half here in Atlanta. Thank you very much. I came out here about 6-7 years ago. I was doing a little show, and my wife and I really loved it. So after we got out of LA, we looked around, and we still want to be part of the business, in the business. We live and breathe the business, but LA wasn't it for us. It wasn't where we wanted to raise our 3 kids, and so Atlanta called to us. So thank y'all for having us. It's been a beautiful place. We love it. And I don't believe Arby's does have the meats. They have some sort of synthetic version of the meats. Chick-fil-A has more meat than
They're gonna
Arby's.
fight outside later.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I saw, the story was very original, fresh, just a great perspective all around. I thought, you know, like you mentioned, some of these influences, possibly Indiana Jones. I felt like I saw maybe a little Glorious Bastards. But I also felt like I saw, it felt kind of like some of these older World War II films, like Dirty Dozen, a little Guns and Navarone, and I really appreciated how it really kind of put me back to watching some of those old classic World War II films. And I wondered, were there any other older World War II films that were a big source of inspiration, something that maybe isn't as well known as some of those?
The one, awesome question. The one that jumps out at me is Where Eagles Dare. You know, that's an old classic. And you know, kind of by design. So you know, as a process, Dan, raise your hand. Business partner Dan and I, he's a producer on Condors, as he was our casting director. You know, Dan and I will go through kind of a process with stories before we ever get to scripts, and you know, we'll decide, you know, kind of framework and you know what we want things to look like tonally. And then I'll jump into the script, and you know, we'll go back and forth, you know, and Jacob, who was a producer on this, obviously would sit in, you know, the three of us would sort of roundtable these things and talk about tone. And conceptually, from the very top of this, we decide, okay, we want this to be we talk about, you know, almost the buzzword is like, you know, the 80s, 90s pastiche of a World War II movie. But really, those all came from those, you know, 1960s, 1970s classic World War II movies. And so, yeah, I think some of the revenge thriller aspects and the idea of this guy going against, you know, this pursuit arc to a fortress in the mountains type of a thing. Yeah, you know, you have Where Eagles Dare is, you know, is one of them. You know, have all these classic World War II movies. Of course, most of this doesn't take place during World War II. It's not a war movie. You know, it just has, you know, themes of it that, you know, are threads that wind throughout it. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, some of those old classic movies, and then obviously, you know, the comparison that keeps getting made is Indiana Jones, which it might be something about the brown jacket of the lead. I don't know what it is. It could have something to do with it. But yeah, no, you know, little bits of, you know, sort of osmosis from all these different influences cinematically that, you know, are some of the movies we remember going to growing up. And that was the concept. You know, a movie you can grab a bucket of popcorn, drop $12 and go watch it and have a good time. So yeah, I hope we pulled it off. Yeah. Anybody else? Got time for maybe two more or one more. Anybody?
I have a question for Jacob. You know, I was a really big fan of his work in Point Man, and this one was a lot different. And my favorite scene of yours in this film was probably the beginning scene when you're reacting to all your guys getting killed, and I would love to know your process in that scene. Just what you were going through.
That process was interesting, and Chase, you having actually worked with Phil before, and us both coming from the theater, it was actually pretty amazing. While we filmed that, Phil was just off screen with a blank firing pistol, and because myself and the actors playing the airmen, most of us were, you know, friends and coworkers, he was actually yelling at me that I was letting them down and telling me name by name which one I was individually while firing the pistol. So, and it was also about 130 fucking degrees. So that wasn't acting. That was just wearing a bunch of wool and having a breakdown while Phil was having fun playing cap. So that was the process, and it worked.
Yeah, sometimes there's enough in the moment.
Method directing. I'm actually going to kill your co-star. You know, we haven't seen a lot of those airmen.
Yeah.
There's one over there.
We got one.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right, before we close it out, I just want to recognize everyone that was involved in this film. We got a bunch of people in the house. If you were in this film or worked on it, everybody come down here real quick.
Come on, Dad.
Give a round of applause. There are entirely too many people to name here, and I know that on this there's a bunch of folks that couldn't actually make it down here. But we've got everything from producers to actors to a director of photography to just on down the line. So many fantastic folks. And you know, it takes so many people to make a film, and this is just a small percentage of them. But you know, this film would not be what it was without these fine folks. So give them another round of applause.
There's a lady up in the corner over there. She's raised her hands like 3 times, but she's shy about it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
I think it's a lady, I can't say it. There's a light in front of your face.
Mom, turn the
Good eye.